This is Speak of the Devils on AZ Family Sports.
Welcome to Speak of the Devils, the premier television show for Sun Devil Athletics. I'm Brad Denny with 3TV.
And I'm Joe Healey with DevilsDigest.com.
Joe, we made it. Finally, Sun Devil football is back on the field.
After a little pause from New Year's Day until right now, it is time for Sun Devil football to get back going again. The expectations are going to be high. Everybody's wondering, can the Devils do it again and defend their Big 12 championship crown? Well, that mission kicks off next week with spring football.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see exactly how the Sun Devils are making that transition from the hunters to the hunted. But as you mentioned, it all starts when ASU hits the practice fields beginning on Tuesday, March 25th, culminating in the spring game or perhaps the Fan Fest on April 25th, a Friday. It's going to be a lot of fun out there. But let's start off with a preview of the offensive side of the ball. Now, quarterback, this is a lot less dramatic than it was a year ago when ASU was opening spring with a three-man quarterback battle. They're coming back this year with one of the best quarterbacks in the nation. Sam Leavitt emerged as a true star in the sport. So he's number one. How things pan out, perhaps behind him, might be of interest, but they have one of the best backups, and or at least most experienced backups in the conference.
Yeah, Sam Leavitt, no longer an unknown commodity, no longer talking about what ifs or maybe if he does this or that. He is the man for Arizona State, and get ready for it. Going to be a lot of hype in the preseason for him. A lot of folks are going to call him a Heisman contender, maybe a Heisman favorite. Those position rankings that all those magazines and websites like to do, you're going to see him near the top and probably at the top of some of those. So the expectations are going to be high for Leavitt in season 2 at Arizona State. Talk about Jeff Sims, man, that is an integral part to have a guy who has starting experience from 3 different schools, including Arizona State, back there behind Sam Leavitt as he continues to grow, and to have Sims as that potential emergency valve if necessary. Behind him, you've got some true and redshirt freshmen, but you got to feel really good about the quarterback position, not just the top guy there, but pretty much the entire depth.
Yeah, so you have quarterback 1, quarterback 2, not a whole lot of drama. Running back, ooh, this is going to be a fun battle to watch. Who will take over from Cam Skattebo, who put together a historic season and is heading to the NFL? A lot of talented backs in here that are going to be in that mix. 2 of the names near the top, Kyson Brown, who's turned a true junior, was Scat's backup a season ago, had some big-time moments, has all the makings of a complete back. Kanye Udo has done it, though, at the FBS level. He's transferring over to ASU from Army, where he had 10 touchdowns, over 1,100 yards last season, but they're not alone.
Yeah, it's going to be one of the biggest undertakings in college football. Some of the biggest shoes any team will have to fill will ASU have in trying to replace Cam Skattebo. You can't replace a guy like that. You just do your very best to fill that void. As you mentioned, those top 2 at the very top of the depth chart, as we think it will be. Kyson Brown had a very, very good year in a backup role last year. Kanye Udo ran for over 1,100 yards at Army, a 12-win team last season. But behind him, still a lot of talent. You've got Raleek Brown, a former 5-star athlete who came over from USC, saw a little bit of action last year before being shut down due to medical issues. Alton McCaskill had an incredible season 4 years ago at Houston, trying to regain that magic. Jason Brown, a true freshman last year who saw some action against Wyoming and looked good doing it. He's a former 4-star prospect himself. You've got some others coming into the fold. Demarius Robinson, a true freshman. So a lot of pieces for Sean Aguano, the position coach, to work with as they try to rebuild that running game with the absence of Skattebo.
All right, moving on to wide receiver. Kind of like quarterback there. You know what you have coming back at the very top, and that's Jordyn Tyson, one of the country's best. So Sam Leavitt to Jordyn Tyson combo should be extraordinary this fall. After that, though, a lot of questions. There's some returning guys like a Malik McLean, a big-bodied guy who took a redshirt last year but made some huge plays in the postseason for the Devils. You have some young returners like a Zechariah Sample, an explosive young player. But this group is, I think, in spring ball in terms of the intrigue, going to be defined by new faces. 3 new additions to the transfer portal, 4 from the high school ranks in the signing class. Man, the race after Jordyn Tyson is going to be really interesting.
This group is probably going to have some of the best position battles all spring for y'all to keep an eye on. I'm really intrigued to see how Jalen Moss performs. He's the Fresno State transfer who brings more than 100 career receptions to Arizona State. You also have 4 true freshmen coming in, and sometimes those guys can surprise out of nowhere. So keep an eye on what goes on with the wide receivers this spring.
Yeah, Moss, especially with his pedigree, is going to be really intriguing to see how he factors in there. All right, moving on to the tight end position group. Again, kind of like copy-paste there. One of the best in the conference. Shimon Mateer earned second-team All-Big 12 honors a season ago. Cameron Harple was a nice role player for the Devils in 2024 as well. but some young and new faces I think are going to define this group this spring.
AJE, a true freshman coming in from the state of California, a dude who is all of 6'6", just a beast out there, ready-made for the college game. Don't forget about Jaden Fortier. He was a big-time recruit who sat out last year due to injury. Also got former 4-star prospect Kamari Anderson to transfer from Kentucky. A lot of guys at tight end. This could be a very strong position group for ASU this year.
Marcus Arroyo loves to use multiple tight ends, and so we'll see exactly how the pecking order behind Mateer shakes out. Now, moving to the offensive line, ASU returns 4 starters from a season ago, but this spring, a little bit of an asterisk. Left guard starter, Ben Coleman, he's moving to center. Maxi Hanachor, the right tackle starter, he's going to be missing spring due to injury, but so that leaves some opportunities for the guys. Jalen Clem is a guy who took a medical red shirt last year for the Devils. He's back. He could be a factor at both right and left tackle. Some young guys like Champ Westbrooks, Terrell Kim, and Sean Na'a could make runs as well, but there are some known commodities in this group.
Yeah, you lose Lee Fatano, one of the top players on the team, a leader on and off the field. He's gone from that center position, obviously, which is what created the move for Ben Coleman from guard to center. So as you mentioned, though there are a lot of starters and depth players who return, there are some questions to be answered, and we should see some spring battles. And if someone like a Jalen Clem or another offensive tackle is able to get in there and really assert himself, does that change the strategy for the year? So again, even though a lot of familiar faces return, there still are some storylines to follow at offensive line.
And one guy along the interior, Jameta Obibo, a Texas State transfer, could be a factor at Ben Coleman's former position at left guard. A lot of good stuff that we'll be tracking all spring long for you. But when we come back after the break, we're going to be talking to the head man of ASU's offense. We're going to be joined by ASU offensive coordinator Marcus Arroyo. Welcome back to Speak of the Devils. Marcus Arroyo enters his second season as Arizona State's offensive coordinator. Last year, his arrival in Tempe kickstarted a turnaround for the Sun Devil offense. Sam Leavitt emerged as one of the best quarterbacks in the country. Cam Skattebo rewrote Sun Devil records left and right. And wide receiver Jordyn Tyson emerged as one of the best pass catchers in the country. This spring, he's going to be overseeing an offensive side of the ball that has a lot of key pieces back, but a lot of questions, as we alluded to in our previous segment, to answer and sort through. I recently had a chance to sit down with Arroyo, and we talked about the quarterback position, the growth of Sam Leavitt, how he's going to replace the production of Cam Skattebo, some intriguing new players, and much more. So when you look at that running back group, obviously Scott's a huge loss, but you have a number of returning guys coming into that room. You had Kanye to that mix. What are some of the things you want to see out of that stable of backs over the course of spring practice?
I think we talked about this a lot, and it's no. I've made it really evident to them that there's not going to be there's no elephant in the room. It's not like, hey, oh no, it's going to be well, we can't do this again. We recruited you guys to come in and do a job in the offense. Here's the things that we did last year at the running back position that are asked of us in the standards in the offense. And here's what we think you guys can bring to them. Here's the roles you each play. Here's what we believe in. Here's the body blow type of mentality, the toughness of running the football. Here's the toughness of playing of the back. And then here's the things that Scat plays. And these are the things that are hard to replace. These are the things where we got to figure out whether one of you guys have them or we have to find those around our offense and share the accountability to carry that flag. When you take those out of it, the other pieces have to fall in line regardless. You've got to be able to run a football, got to be able to catch the ball in the backfield in the offense, you've got to be able to be responsible and effective in the screen game, you've got to be good in pass protection. And so that's really the recruiting and standard of the position. Those are the intangibles of the position. All those guys we've got in that room understand that. It's very clear. More than anything, Coach Iguana does a fantastic job. Each of those guys also have to be themselves. You can't try to go, none of those guys are going to try to go out there and wear number 4 and go and put a different name on their back. It's be yourself, know your role, find your way, find your own path. And then that way, that'll allow me and us as a staff to be able to say, here's what some things we can do with you. Here's how we find that explosiveness, that production back. And that's an awesome challenge. That's what I love that. I love the piece of ripping the whole thing down and building it back up.
So this time last year, Sam's heading into a spring ball quarterback battle. This time, he's now, getting a lot of accolades, one of the top returning quarterbacks in the nation. How have you seen him kind of handle success and some of the things that you've done this offseason to kind of prepare him now that, he's coming in as the guy, and also the weight of these expectations that's on him?
Yeah, I mean, Sam's really mature. I've made it very clear to him in the offense about how how the light changes right now, how the targets change, how the distractions can increase, and what that can do if we take your off the road. But I think we've got a mature group who understands that there's so much room for growth. Sam understands that in year one of the quarterback, the game's going to slow down now. Been fortunate to have quite a few guys that have had a lot of experience in that position and gone on to play. So I use that to my advantage and say, we've got a long ways to go. Here's some things we're going to have to do to get to where you want to go. Here's the next step. Defensive recognition, footwork, mechanics, coverage ID, timing, rhythm. All those things are all things we're not near where we want to be at. And I think that's exciting because those are opportunities for growth. And we'll do some things that are going to be challenging to them. I got to find a few things that I think, can really put them in position to maybe fail and get back to having some fun and growing. And he loves that. He's an alpha. I have no doubts in my mind. He's up for every challenge we're going to give him. And I think his humility and his character are going to prove that all those accolades are just part of the deal. And we got to be able to starve our distractions, ignore the noise.
How important was it to, what does it say about the, this program and the culture that Jeff wanted to come back for another year?
Who? I'm sorry.
Jeff Sims.
I said it when I first got here. I said there's Kenny and has done a fantastic job with this culture of providing an opportunity where guys can come in and be themselves, learn, have humility, have fun, work their ass off. Excuse me. Find a way to grow in their own way, and Jeff has been fantastic. I was humbled and excited and fired up that he wanted to come back because I think an opportunity to work with him again is just going to give him more and more opportunities in the future if he wants to continue to proceed potentially. And I think it's going to make us better. Selfishly, I think having Jeff around as a human and as a player gives us an advantage in any role. He's just got a personality about him, a workman-like temperament. He loves football. He's a team guy. I think the value he adds is incredible. So I'm humbled and fired up. It says a lot about our locker room.
And the last one for you is obviously wide receiver. You have been one of the best in the nation coming back. Then a lot of new faces and also some younger guys and some guys that are looking to make a step up that are coming back. What would make a successful spring for you from the wide receivers perspective?
We do. I'm fired up about this room because we got a chance to. Me and Hines both got here last year and kind of drinking through a fire hose and meeting people and trying to figure out who we got and having some guys leave and transfer and figured out on the fly throughout the course of the season. And then knowing what I kind of saw in JT and being able to use him in every facet we could. For JT in year two, similar to Sam, to see the game slow down, to see how he's going to be able to recognize some things a little bit, be able to detail his game, the specifics of route running, specifics of coverage ID, all the little stuff that's going to really just take his game to the next level. And then add these young guys that we had or that we brought in, some with experience, and to be able to infuse him with some more infuse that group with some more guys that can really go, and not to say that the guys we lost couldn't go. It's just we're in year two, the standards went up, we recruited to go bigger and better because that's what we got to do. And iron sharpens iron. We brought in a bunch of guys who were going to compete for some spots, and between the Mosses, the Nobles, Hamiltons, having Malik back for a full season now and not having a choppy beginning and a little end. I mean, that room is going to be powerful, and I'm excited to see the effectiveness these guys have.
Welcome back to Speak of the Devils. Let's turn our attention now, Joe, to the defensive side of the ball. Now, unlike the offensive side where there's some big-time position battles and a lot of uncertainty in certain areas, the defense is stacked. And what's one of the benefits of having a really good season a year ago? Everybody wanted to come back, and most everybody that could did. Starting off with the defensive line, it just reads like just everybody that played a key role for the Devils down the stretch up front is back.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the 3 deep from the Peach Bowl across the 4-man defensive line. There's only one player from that 3 deep who isn't back, and that's defensive tackle Jeff Clark, who had a very solid season last year. He ran out of eligibility, so you got a lot of pieces coming back. You add to it a little bit. You got a guy like Michael Gardner, the former Peoria Liberty standout who transferred from Oregon. Anthony Cooper, the Millennium High School graduate, coming back for his 7th year after missing last season due to injury. So again, a lot of familiarity there. One thing we're going to be looking for is an improved pass rush from last year.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what those edges can do. Guys like Clayton Smith, Prince Dorba, Elijah O'Neal, especially perhaps maybe some of the younger guys like an Albert Smith or a Roman Petrie or Mar Williams could factor into that group as well. But a lot of experienced ASU again should be very stout up front with that tackle duo of CJ Fight, Jacob Ngaika, Zach Swanson will be in that mix as well. Moving on to the linebacker group, and Caleb McCullough was a great story and a huge contributor for the defense a season ago. He's gone. Everybody else is back, led by Jordan Crook, Keyshawn Elliott, and Zyrus Fiaseu.
Yeah, that's a group that, again, that departure of McCullough is something that's going to be a factor with this. But those returners that you mentioned, they're guys that contributed last year, really performed well. Might look for a little bit more, season-long consistency out of some members from that group. You also have some youngsters. I know, Brad, you're really high on Martell Hughes. There are going to be some true freshmen coming in as well. So even though it's a group that only plays two men out there on more occasions than not, just like last year, going to be a lot of depth and a lot of competition.
Now, moving on to the cornerback position, just like kind of the other two levels there, the starters are back. Javen Robinson and Keith Abney in their first year together performed really well, and I thought as the season progressed, they really found their stride. And I think by the end of the year, we're among the conference's best. They'll be probably one of the top tandems in the conference, if not the country. Big question here, though, is who's going to be that third cornerback. LaTerrence Welch had that role for most of last season before his dismissal for disciplinary reasons. So some young guys there. ASU had 4 true freshman corners last year that now have a year of experience in this defense under their belt. They brought in a former 5-star prospect, Nyland Green, who's bounced around the country a little bit for a few stops. Added another true freshman, Joseph Smith. Man, I think it's going to be a real fun battle with a lot of talented guys.
Yeah, really high on that combination of Abney and Robinson. They really proved themselves over the course of last year. And I'm confident that ASU should not only be able to kind of match the performance that Welch had as that third cornerback, I think they've got the pieces to potentially surpass that. So I'm really eager to see what those guys behind that starting tandem do this spring.
All right, moving to safety. Now you're returning Xavion Alford, first-team all-conference player, one of the best, probably should be in contention for All-American honors this year. Miles Rouser next to him at that safety spot, a very good player as well. But who is going to take over for Shamari Simmons at nickel, Joe? That's going to be a key question for Mark for this defense.
Yeah, very tough guy to replace. ASU's defensive MVP each of the last 2 years, just a team staple, someone that is going on to the NFL. He'll find a way to make it there. But you've got some names that give you some intrigue. Montana Warren, of course, returning from last year. He played in place of Simmons in that first half that Shamari had to sit out. You also have Kendrick Breedlove, Adrian Wilson, Kyan McDonald, some newcomers, some returning players, just a lot of guys that are going to battle for that spot. Going to be real difficult to replace Simmons, but they've got some talent there to where it shouldn't be too much of a drop-off.
All right, so closing things out on special teams now. Canyon Floyd is back as the team's punter. What's going to happen at kicker? One of the things ASU had to address in this offseason, and they did so. Jesus Gomez is coming over from Eastern Michigan. He's going to be joining Carson Kiefer and Ian Hershey, who are returning from last year. Should be a very interesting battle.
I'm really high on Gomez based on the numbers that you see from him from his time at Eastern Michigan. He connected on 80% of his field goals, and he attempted a lot, 25, pretty high number last year. He's had at least one 55-yard field goal that he's made in each of the last 3 seasons. He has 6 50-plus yarders the last 3 years. It brings you some accuracy, a lot of experience, a strong leg, all the things ASU's been missing. But I really feel like that missing piece might be in place for ASU football this year.
Yes, an improvement at kicker could go a long way to ASU's chances of repeating as Big 12 champs. After the break, Joe and I will be back highlighting some players that are primed for a breakout or need a big-time spring performance. Welcome back to Speak of the Devils. Now, spring practices are a time where a player perhaps a little bit lower on the depth chart could break through and make their name known and stake their claim heading into the summer and to fall camp. So this also could be a time where those players that perhaps need a big-time performance to avoid getting passed up a little bit. So we're going to bounce back and talk about some of those players that are really catching our eye. Joe, for me, I think wide receiver Zechariah Sample fits the bill. Now, he unfortunately was battling injuries last year as a true freshman, man, when he was healthy. I mean, there's fast players, and then there's Zechariah Sample levels of fast. He stood out amongst a very deep group of wide receivers a season ago. 7 new faces joining that room, though. I think it's very crucial now that he's healthy to make his name known this spring.
A guy that I think is going to have an opportunity but really needs to capitalize upon it. Someone who had a very solid season last year is Kyson Brown. With Skattebo gone from the program, he has a shot to become the starting running back. but they brought in Kanye Udo from Army, who ran for over 1,100 yards last year. It's going to be a dogfight. See if Kyson Brown can pull it out to become a starting running back here.
All right, so another guy on offense that is in my crosshairs, tight end AJ Ia. He was a 4-star prospect in ASU's 2025 recruiting class. Got to see him in person the other day, and oh my, he looks every bit the look of the modern tight end, 6'6", 240. Now, ASU has a luxury of all Big 12 performer Shimon Mateer at the top of the depth chart, but AJ Ia, he has a vast potential, and I would not be surprised if he has a strong spring if he's not a big contributor this fall.
Malik McLean's going to be really interesting to watch. He sat out the majority of last year, but he came on and became a big-time playmaker in those final 2 games of the postseason. With the departures ASU's had at wide receiver, he's going to get a chance to be a starter and to be a big-time playmaker for this 2025 season. But we'll see what the spring brings, because based on what we saw, against teams like Iowa State and Texas, he showed that he can do it, and he's done it at Florida State, Penn State a little bit as well before ASU. He's someone I think that could have a really big season if he puts it all together.
Now, switch over to defense. And we talked about the line. There's a lot of returning guys coming back, a ton of experience. And it might be a little bit hard for a young guy to make that, to crack into that mix. But I think Albert Smith is a guy that can do it. He was a true freshman a season ago, came in from Louisiana, a quiet guy, but he, as the season went on in camp, his play made some noise, including a 3-sack practice. I asked recently CJ Fight about what young lineman really caught his eye. First answer out of his mouth, Albert Smith. So we'll see how he's able to level up and if he's able to maybe make a difference with that pass rush off the edge.
So swinging things from a youngster just really getting started with his career at ASU to the eldest statesman in the room, talking about 7th-year senior Anthony Cooper, who missed all of last season due to injury, but was a really solid player, especially in that 2021 season for ASU. He's been with the program since 2019. Just someone that's seen a little bit of everything for Sun Devil football. Man, the roller coaster that guy has seen here. We'll see how he fits in this year's lineup. He is a top-level contributor, can be something that brings tremendous value to this defensive line. We'll just see what happened and maybe how rusty he is after that year off. We'll see what the spring brings for him, and if maybe it takes a little bit longer for him to get acclimated into the lineup, but brings a wealth of experience and leadership that could be very valuable for this team.
All right, another guy for me that I'm going to be watching is at linebacker, and that's Martell Hughes. Last year as a true freshman, contributed on the special teams, had a nice block punt. Also kind of near the end of the year, we got some reps on the defensive side. He's new to the position. He played safety in high school, but I think he has a great future. AJ Cooper, the position coach, very high on his potential. A smart kid, member of the Barrett Honors College as well. So I think Martell Hughes could be one of those guys like Michaela McCullough. People on the outside looking in, heading into the year, but by the time we get to the games that count, he could be a factor.
It's going to be a real interesting spring for Montana Warren in the secondary. He was the next man up to start in place of Shamari Simmons when Simmons was suspended for the first half of that Peach Bowl. But ASU brought in a lot of guys to compete to fill that nickelback spot in place of Simmons. Warren might get the first crack, but he's not going to be the only guy. Going to need a big spring out of him if he wants to be a starter for ASU this fall.
Man, it's going to be a lot of fun tracking what these Big 12 champions do over the course of the 15 spring practices that culminate, of course, on April 25th with the Fan Fest. Joe and I will be bringing podcasts to you each and every week throughout the course of spring practice, and we'll be back on Arizona's Family Sports on the 3rd Thursday of April as we preview the end of spring. Until then, make sure you stay with us on social media and subscribe at Speak of the Devils on YouTube.